So World Leaders right off the bat is the one where I think, like you said, we had a lot of strong advantages because they didn't have guns. Forge Fiends were not what they were now.
No.
And then also they were so elite. Okay, they just had a hard time when you trade point for point. The amount of damage, 9 points of one boy did versus one of their models that was 5 or 6 boys combined, way different. And the amount of ways you can kill. Now I think it's dropped down a little bit. I think if we're talking Berserker Warband more or less, because I think that's the one that's going to be is the most popular. I really like KDK. Our Corn Demonkin,
Yep.
hilarious. That's something I used to love and play so much back in the day. But
Soup
I think
baby.
those matchups are different. Yeah, I love Super. Like,
Yeah.
we're only going to be starting on taking Bellacore, Mortarion, Abaddon, a Dreadclaw, Lucius, and a Helldrake all in one army. And I want a GT with that.
Yeah.
Those Leagues of Extraordinary Idiots was the name
Yeah.
of the list.
That's a good name.
Yep. But with that, back to the main point is Berserkers going down to Strength 4 is a big change. And Berserker Warband helps with that because making Strength 6 important breaking points. But when they get stuck in combat, they ain't got fight first no more. And they're Strength 4. So if like you bog them down with a bunch of units, you will just handle Berserkers
Mm-hmm.
pretty safely when you hit them up with 5 or 6 orc units at one time, or even 3 or 4. So in those matchups, I look at it like, hey, look, this is army. It doesn't have advanced charge anymore. We got advanced charge. Awesome. We got some guns. We got screens that are way better than their screens compared Jackals, the Grots, and Zagrod. Zagrod is just what 8 Bound used to be, but better in every way. And you get all these. The world leaders ones are still really elite, and you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about Angeron coming back 3 or 4 times. Been there, done that. Don't have to worry about that no more. I think the world leader matchup is very favorable for us. I think what we need to be careful of is knowing not to get greedy against them because of Forge Fiend. We need a certain level that we can handle Forge Fiends respectively and not get instead jailed by world leaders pressuring up on us and shooting us with Forge Fiend. We can't touch the Forge Fiend. Because the Forge Fiends are like tank busters into us, right? And tank busters and other orcs hurt really hard. Like blast is a good rule on them.
Absolutely.
And their Overwatch potential. Their Overwatch potential with those things when you get with an 18 is pretty legit. Good at killing an orc unit, typically in Overwatch. So, ways that you can jail them, or just fight them goes on later when we talk about like what I'm looking at taking, how I handle those situations. You need to build up plans to be able to handle it. Either one, outright kill them, screen them out and body block them and get a tempo advantage, and so forth. So that's one of the ways you got to learn how to handle the Forge Fiends in that army now and still not just lose the melee game because you over respected the Forge Fiends or you just disrespect.
Yeah.
Make sure that extremes on both sides aren't happening. You need to play a good, fair game. And then once you get that really strong position where you're just like, okay, we're going to fight everywhere on the board, that's when you start pressuring, right? Don't run at them really ignorant because at that point, yeah, they don't have advantage charge, but you ran at them so fast they don't need it because you're at their doorstep. Let the world leaders move up a little bit and see if they overextend and take advantage of the fact that they are overall threat ranges are not what they used to be. They're more consistent. Their threat ranges are now more consistent because the base movements are higher, but the potential is, the ceiling is way lower. And take advantage of, they don't have feeling pains anymore. I think that
Mhm.
really helps a lot too.
They have almost
Because
no defensive capabilities other than the strat to reduce damage by 1 in combat. That's like they
yep,
kind of live off that best they can.
yep,
And I think a couple of their demon princes. I think one of them can have some defensive buffs. I'm not really sure if I remember that correctly. But yeah,
they can some.
they are soft. And like you said, I actually had a moment where I was over too zealous not too long ago against them. I was on a streak, and I was like, it's fine. I'm just
Uh-huh.
gonna approach them again. And I guess now they have an ability where they can disembark from their rhino if you
Yep.
encroach on it. And typically I'd be like, well, this looks like a good wrapping potential here, boy. And I moved in on it. It was not a good wrapping potential. It was not good. I was in danger. So yeah, there's a lot of good play for us there. They are quite soft. They will run out of assets if you do pressure them and they have to respond to you. We can still get good trades out of them. And one thing that I think we're going to talk about maybe as well is the toughness factor. It seems like
Yep.
something like a Gork, a Mork, even though they can still get kind of annihilated, there is play because they don't have that same reliable peak punching potential to outright disrespect a Mork or a Gork anymore. At least not from my experience.
Yep.
Like the Demon Prince that has like 40 damage, for example, he can maybe, but other than him, they don't have that same kind of oomph, at least from what I've experienced. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I think that's absolutely correct because like they kind of got what Orks did at the beginning of the session, where like their overall strengths just keep getting weaker. Like
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why Berserker Warband helps. Like +2 strength was great on the charge, but a lot of the units you talk on the charge are at 6 and 10s. Those are the breaking points, right? And that goes with that with the marking works. Like as soon as they're asking them to wound on 5s, no one likes wounding on 5s,
No.
and world leaders aren't exactly bringing a lot of twin link to help out with that.
No.
And when you have to deal with mass and you're hitting it on multiple different units, there's all kinds of these technical plays where you're like, hey, I based this Gorkanaut into this unit of 8-bound, but the rest of the 8-bound got based by a Grot, and then the Morkanaut only touching one dude, and this guy's not based with anyone else.
Yeah.
This one 8-bound can only swing on this Morkanaut. He ain't doing nothing. If it was a resultant 8-bound in the past, I may be worried, but they are gone.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's exactly how it is. Like you said, our screens are better, and if someone won't, charge your screen or interact with it, well, you force it on them, right? You're still gonna fight these grots, boy. Another thing to check out is our sponsor, the Baron of Dice. They make high quality custom dice. If you enjoy our content and want to show some love, check out the Baron of Dice custom dice, including Wall Tactics official dice. To support us, use our discount code in the description for 5% off, because nobody likes taxes. And of course, shout out to Forge Fire Gaming. They offer competitive terrain sets that I use at home that comes pre-painted with slotted acrylic bases, allowing for easy building removal and measuring and alignment with it itself. Check it out in the description, and check out our paint competition. This month we have the Stampa, so you can get a set of those Wall Tactic dice. But yeah, that's good for World Leaders. What about Thousand Suns? Well, I'm not too familiar. I don't have a bunch of Thousand Suns play around me. I have one really proficient one, and I haven't got to see him in a while. So how about you with Thousand Suns? I mean, they seem like they're still susceptible to what Orks like to do to them.
Yep. There's a huge tempo advantage there.
Yeah.
Magnus is not as strong as he was. I didn't have problems with Orcs because I just ignored Magnus until the end game, because like Orc units just trying to map out Magnus is not good.
No.
Like that's one of the reasons why the mortal wounds. Like anytime you find the Orc list where you're like, I can grenade you, I can tank shock you, I got mortal wound strat charge from multiple different codexes, I got squig bombs out the wazoo, I got a squig mine now from a Wrecker Truck squig buggy, and I will shove 3 down your throat if I get the opportunity. And try to get one of those 4-ups off. But
selling a dream right now, boys. You hear that? We just sound like we got 50 mortal wounds. In reality, I rolled a bunch of 1s and 2s. No, I was kidding. But yeah, it is exciting. You're right. But you can't really go for Magnus, especially when we lack that more, in my opinion, now than before. Between the bomb squigs.
I'm trying to say, Rubricai are just good against those units are good, but we have to make sure that we stage and tempo and start tagging stuff. We can't play a control game with that army. That's an army where turn 1 we're going to reposition most likely up if they don't go forward, and then just mess up their secondary game. Keep them from getting behind us. Fight them on the front. Fight them in their half of the table, and keep them from holding objectives. You hold objectives, and eventually you're going to trade a lot of bodies. You're going to kill a bunch of their guys. You're going to kill a bunch of your guys. They may end up on top at the end of all the fighting. You may end up on top at the end of the fighting. The problem is you are affecting their scores so bad for so long that they're going to have a hard time establishing. That's an army, as soon as it has control, it's really hard to break it down. It's really hard to just upset Thousand Suns when they have established the tempo and the control of the game. And they're a high damage, a little bit more slower army that likes to take you apart in the right ways if you don't just give them the, I'm going to table you aspect. And most armies in the games do not have the tools to just go over the top with them. And Orks are one of them. So I feel really good about that matchup. The new Demon Princes do give me concerns. I was building some Thousand Suns. If I was not playing Orks at the moment, I think I would be playing with T-Suns and 4 or 5 Demon Princes. The Demon Princes guns are actually really scary for it. Like you put dev wounds, ignore cover, AP1, 9 shots, like you get +1 to wound, +1 to strength, and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, that kills an Ork really easily.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think there's things to be cautious on that matchup. But
Demon Princes are quite popular. I mean, I think do Emperor's Children run them? World Eaters run them?
Yep. Everyone runs them. They're very good. A lot of the meta people right now are really thinking T-Suns are not good, but I think long term we'll see that change because they shoot really hard. They have great abilities. They have psychic on all their weapons and dev wounds, and they are dirt cheap compared to everyone else's Demon Princes. They are dirt cheap, and that's not okay.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see how they unpack with what they actually have as their book. I feel like it's kind of new for people to already putting them in the corner, just because they take a little bit more development and everything. So we'll see. You Orks usually do have the pressure and right profiles to kind of kill them efficiently. We might have to talk about how to just handle demon princes in a little bit though. But what about Emperor's Children? You know, I hear a lot about how they're pretty much just run at you charge, not too much high as we spoke about with the World Eaters, not too great into super high toughness armies, but they do have the pressure, the staging.
Yep.
Interestingly, they want to run transports on us. So what's up with Emperor's Children?
So like Emperor's Children are very similar in Orcs in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
For like tempo, they're just like a very elite version. Very fast. They got great tempo, great staging. They can jail us in on like a small amount of models, and they can simplify the board state so fast. Like if they can trade with Orcs extremely efficiently because like typically they're gonna kill double their bodies.
Oof.
And right, like a unit noise ring gets out and it looks at like 20 boys. It's gonna do a lot of damage to 20 boys, right? Like
Yeah.
each attachment's a little different, but then like they're shooting you and they're meleeing you.
Yeah.
So like when they're getting both of those efficiencies out, they're doing good damage. The thing that you got to make sure with your orcs is you are making sure that hey, look, what they are killing is almost reverse. Generally, you want to protect your expensive units and with those in the game. But against Emperor's Children, I actually have like a reverse thing where I want to use the expensive units to do as much damage they do, use them as bait, let them run at them forward, and then you can overwhelm them with the fact that like they're a very, very elite Marine army, and then all the rest of your units, like, yeah, they hurt you, but you also hurt them a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you can outnumber them with the number of units after that initial clashing of the armies, because like they can handle power units really well. Like when like one of their mid-size, like a unit noise marine looks at like a power orc unit after like the front lines have clashed, that marine unit could probably just kill that main power orc unit, and that's a trade up for them. So like if I just use that as bait, make them overextend a little bit more, or like do some of a trade with them with a power unit in the early game to get them in a comfortable position to make them be more aggressive, and then I can overwhelm them with like a 2v1 unit count towards the like mid game to late game. That's kind of my thoughts for it right now. Unless I just get to go first and just really disrespect them with like, hey, look, like I got a good long line down here with squid buggies for all these matchups, but really taking advantage of the fact that like I'm just gonna stat check you as fast as possible and try to like simplify this game. Now the key things, knowing that everything's dead, and what's important is I lose less units, not as many points. Units matter more than the actual points that the units are pointed at.
Yeah, that makes sense. Instead of being so worried about what did this cost, it's what do I actually have left to play the game. And as you were saying, Emperor's Children are still just T4 Marine bodies, and they still get overwhelmed by a 10-man unit of Snagas. Throwing in some flash kits that ran in, throw some shots on them as well. They jump them, so I can understand what you're saying here. Let them maybe try to dog out a different unit, but then ultimately that what they use to kill it with can still be picked apart by unit of Snagas, and then Flash gets shoot and throw a grenade, and ultimately that unit still got picked up for a very efficient cost. So that's an interesting take. And then we have, well, let's say this: out of those factions from Thousand Sons, DeathGuard, World Eaters, what's the order maybe you would say that their power or strength is? I know we said people think Thousand Sons at the bottom. We'll just snug them in there just for now, but for the last three.
So we haven't talked about DeathGuard yet, but in ranking those 4 Chaos God factions, like I put World Leaders at the bottom. They're still very good and so forth. It's in the line of Ork plays, but also I think compared to the other factions, like I don't like World Leaders in their personal at the moment, and I don't like them in the DeathGuard. Granted, Thousand Sons are very good for World Leaders. There's a tempo thing similar, where like just lock them in melee, and Blood Surge from Berserkers are really awkward for Thousand Sons to deal with. So with that all in mind, though, DeathGuard is number 1. I put T-Sons at number 2, Emperor's Children at 3, and then World Leaders at 4.
Oh,
okay. If I had to choose overall meta.
Good take.
Yeah, okay. I think they're all good. It's just a matter of like there's rock paper scissors among themselves almost. But
that's fitting for the Chaos Gods. That's fitting though. I actually like that. I totally like that. I appreciate that. And I actually intentionally left DeathGuard out for last because I actually want to cover Chaos Knights first, and then we can talk DeathGuard because they're the big bad, and then from there we can transition into what you're actually doing. And I think that goes well. So for Chaos Knights, how are you feeling about them? I know a lot of us are happy. So I have a leaf among the Warhammer community of I'm tired of Team 10 being spammed everywhere. Let's bring that down. Even factions that we don't play, the World Eaters themselves, like we spoke about, love that they came down in toughness. toughness. I do think it's a bit healthier in that sake for the game. The extra wound came into play though, and I do find that more interesting considering we were one of those armies that used mortal wounds to chip those guys down. So well, how do you feel about the Chaos Knights? It seems like War Dog spam is still going to be here to stay for a bit, but what do you think about that?
So there's two major things that we could say is like, T9 is crazy versus T10. Like we can blitz through T9 real fast. T10 requires a little bit more effort. Like tank buses are honestly when they pop pulse or rocket, like they're winning on 2. In the wall, all your power claws are winning them on freeze. Like a unit of knobs with power claws do just smack up some dogs.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of strength 5 in our army. When the wall, all our base stuff is strength 5. Things get stronger. You put some kill rates in effect, or certain detachments, or certain type of units. Strength 5 also just winning. As soon as orcs win big stuff on 5s, like you just start hammering out there. You come out there with like a flipping crowbar, and you start taking apart mechanized stuff at C9 before. So feel really good there. But the biggest change for that matchup is not the T9 thing for it. It's the fact that beforehand they were T10, so we kind of hit a wall a little bit where, we can kill a lot of them. Like I've killed 7 in one turn and just win games would be easy. Like I just keep going on there, right? Like the matchup was really dangerous. Because what happens if you didn't kill enough of them in the right order and like the right time when you open up and you start killing them, is you hit into a fact that like this army hits on 2. Brigands, Gatling guns hits on 2s, or Melta guns hit on 2s, Carnivores hits on 2s. All that's gone. They hit on 3s. So once you start bracketing them, once you start applying, hitting on 2s, winning on 3, or hitting on 3s, winning on 3s, you start putting them in melee. You start leaving, them alive that are stuck in melee with you. Like the Gatling guns are hitting you on 4s, Finn, and that math just skews into your favor so far. Like that's just so good. And I think that's actually the biggest change for the matchup is because like also now they you could hit them, and if you bounce, they would just table you the next turn.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen anymore. They lost 50% of their hit roll, and that's pretty drastic. I think I have not played against Mass Dogs yet, but I have played against some of the Chaos Knights that are being played that are like 5 bigs and a baby. And do we hit those T11? We smack them up hard. Like those bigger knights, they got more wounds now. But like when we start hitting them with certain type of profiles, like you can kill big knights really fast. And I feel pretty confident into them as long as we don't get greedy, right? Like if they start bringing like 3 guys with like Gatling cannons and they pump out that's like over 100, like over 100 shots. I want to say for 86, it's like just shy of it. It's 102 shots to the Gatling cannons. If they start doing that, that's a problem because those guns are, if there's 6 of them, they're 18 shots each, and they are 622. Oh boy,
perfect anti-orc weapon, dang there.
Yeah. And like those guys could be a problem. Even if they don't, that's the extreme having 6 of the single Gatling gun in there. But they just have 3 of them because they bring like 3 of them. And they take like dual, Melta cannon, Gatling gun. That would still be a real pain for us because the Melta's not bad to us because it's big Melta that's blast. And the Gatling guns, great suppressive fire. The thing is again with those is you need to set up in a position where like they can't pick at your angles. You're gonna say, hey, look, I'm gonna fight you as a concentrated group onto your concentrated group. I'm just gonna kill 2 knights, and we're gonna keep doing that for the rest of the game, right? And at that point, they can't play the mission. Like you just take advantage of the fact that like you don't play mission, you have to move over here and fight my whole army, and then you're going to die. And I think that one is fine. Like it's really violent. My particular army that I had is really good into it, but I think other orcs relatively well. Definitely when like beast bosses are back on the menu, because like beast bosses are good at all these matchups that we've talked about.
Yeah, for sure. I think though I do still think the T9 did matter a lot because of still kind of what you're saying as well is that we do have the potential to, it's a lower bar to reach to actually punish them for disrespecting us. We are less likely to bounce if we do, but then still, I do like that they bracketed, like you said, they lose the OC, which I thought was a pretty cool twist for GW to add losing the OC thing on there. But then they can't really punish us in response as much, which is due to, in my opinion, the changes, the lack of their toughness, us being able to damage them more reliably with a bunch of different profiles. If we do run into that night, if we run low on assets because I got punished for I did lose something a little too early as anti-knight potential, there is a chance that I still diminish one of these knights enough because of its lower toughness value with an
Hmm.
inferior kind of skirmish unit, like you kind of mentioned earlier with jumping on them. So I do think the toughness in 9 does matter because now in my head, more smaller skirmishing, strength 5, T9 power claws, random rockets, random custom mega blasts, all these things have the potential to cause the bracketing that you mentioned that also causes us to survive that next attack. So I think I'm in agreement with you, but I think the toughness is a really, really big play for that because it allows
Yeah.
all the opportunities you just mentioned. So then we move to the big bads, DeathGuard. So I have a little bit of experience playing with them. Own a DeathGuard army, so it's mixed feelings about if I like how that is being played. It's cool to see drones, but they're quite cheap. How do you feel about DeathGuard as an all? I don't think they're as abusive and worrying as old Mordaka, where everybody wanted us to be nerfed to dust because it was just hard to play at all. Still, you find success with DeathGuard now, I think, against DeathGuard. But where are you at with them?
So one of the big things that helps out a lot for the new DeathGuard Codex for orcs in particular against them is they're not -1 weapon skill, -1 to hit. Orc like melee armies having -2 to hit practically was a really hard thing for orcs to go over. Like it was just a very volatile matchup where like I'm like I can't do any damage. I have to pray back and just jail tempo them, screen, and get good secondaries, and they get bad secondaries. That's different now where like a war boss having +1 to hit to a squad is a lot more impactful, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
-1, +1, and they just counterbalance you just back to your natural numbers. But Death Shroud are everyone's bane existence, everyone's their fight. Like I don't know anyone that's this unit is just broken. And I agree to a certain level. I've played Death Guard 3 times this past week and 1 time with for the balance slate, but with the new codex. And I haven't lost to him yet, but like that's because like I believe in my orc list having lots of screens for my backfield, my front field, and I
Yeah.
can make sure that I can control these armies
Yeah.
to a good degree, right? Because like if they just get to start putting the positions where they get to have it, that you try to fight them, you let them have like 50% of the board, you're going to be behind. What you need to
Yep.
do is make sure that that army does not establish a bunch of board control and keep it. You can't let them do that. You do not worry about the Death Shroud. You kill first, prioritize everything else. You got to hold objectives and do secondary.
For sure.
Bloat drones are good into our infantry. It is solid into a lot of our lighter vehicles, which again is another reason why I like thicker transports. I like my battle wagons. I like my Morkanite.
Yep, we
Because at
mentioned that earlier.
T12,
How the high toughness is interesting, as we've mentioned a couple of these factions. The high toughness matters. World Eaters,
yep, nope.
Death Guard.
Death
It
Guard,
matters.
it does, and
Emperor's
it
Children.
also really matters in Emperor's Children too, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
their stuff is strict 8 to 10. They can kill trucks really easy,
Really
but
easily.
they can't kill those over 2 chassis that are T12 really at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like they require way more effort than they want to. But with that, we have a few things that I have found that I thought was going to be the case with, let's say, a more mid-range shooting aggressive work list. Is one, you can still play around the Cretaceous range and sit right outside of it and still be second. You can get a lot of units with pluses to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mornar, Scorponauts, respectful on their data sheets, get +1 to hit based on the wall, melee or shooting, respectable chassis. Then you can get mechs that can give +1 to hit those chassis. So now even through their -1 to hit, you're still getting +1 to hit because you have plus. And then the more DACA strat where you can just give a walker +1 to hit, is really solid. Like I love that strat. But you're able to still operate. You got to figure out like those. These are just one particular thing which leads to the leadership of my thoughts. But there's one thing really for Death Guard is like I said, don't allow them to establish board. Screen out those Death Shroud. Those Death Shroud need to be deep striking into your opponent's home deployment zone.
Yeah.
You got to order it correctly, but they're going to be way back there. And so you need to kill Poxwalkers fast. You need to take away any of her trash unit, bog them down. Take advantage of the fact that Death Guard, at the end of the day, have a little too much stuff, but they're still a relatively elite army, and they are still, for the most part, a slow army. The army does not just get to redeploy its army in the movement phase like Emperor's Children does, like World Leaders can. It is the slowest of all those factions, and you have to be able to be ready to punish on the fly different bad positioning plays that they've made. Things that will set them back in their tempo. When to Zagrod jail, when to use Zagrod and his Gretchen, soup them up, go kill 20, 30 Poxwalkers that you could find, or as many as you can, and just chip away at them, right? Like not killing 30 off the bat, but like locking them down in positioning and making it where like, here's my deployment back edge. I got units here that are screening out Death Shroud. I got mid-sized units that are getting ready to pressure, and I got frontline units that are pressuring now, and I got layers of sustainability of screens to keep my opponent from Delvering Death Shrouds on midfield objectives,
Mhm.
on multiple at once, and just dominate whole business. And with that in mind, this is a very complicated game plan to do. You have to practice a little bit. You have to have a
Yeah,
vision
for
for
sure.
it.
I
And
found
but
that,
we
like
have
you said,
plays.
you
Oh,
have
go
to
for it.
keep the gas on them, even though you might think it's counterintuitive because you hear about the damage and you see their stat line. When you said
Yep.
they're kind of elite, they do get 7 characters heavy sometimes, which is
Hmm.
kind of a bit too much sometimes for many lists. They start running out of assets. And for example, those same bloat drones that everybody's scared of, we don't get a good way to trade killing them necessarily, right? But they get, bad touch kind of easily, where they don't shoot into combat because they're blast. They don't fight necessarily well to keep a unit off of them once they've tagged them. So, like you said, the board presence factor is the biggest factor when I played into them. Having stuff that's willing to go forward and continue to keep them into their back lines, like that's why people have been looking at buggies and cult of speed and bikers, the Coptus change, just stuff like that. Yeah, I'm totally in agreement there. Where there's answers, and interestingly enough, usually the answer is the table state, right? It's not what can I give you as advice to properly trade with all their drones. That's not the answer. How to shut down their drones effectiveness and minimize their units, efficiency and scoring is what I found better, right? Don't go for all the big brick of castle drones surrounded by their demon prince. Go for the haulers on the outside, get rid of those marines, and push the terminators back. That's been more of the effective way to try to handle them, because in that point now they've lost tough points, ability to score secondaries, possibly falling behind on primary, and like you said, they don't have speed or assets to make up for it. Be a cunning git and check out our new order markers that are in our store. So shout out to you gits being cunning. Help you guys get all the orders set on the table nice and clean for all you gits to get stuck in. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!